The Stolarski Enigma, a title filched from an article in Wire by his biographer E. Tobias Wolfson, traced Nick's every movement he made that day from the time he arrived on campus in the morning to the moment he left it. Witnesses to the affair, eager to add details to the glowing legend, and of course not adverse to be paid for them, noted that the janitor's routine, honed to perfection over 17 years, was on this occasion distinctly out of the ordinary, a fact Supervisor Schanzenbach brought gleefully to the attention of the Institute's administration. The soup, a term he loathed, disapproved of the janitor for ill-defined personal reasons and often alleged, without proof, that Stolarski absconded with school supplies. He also complained of his janitor's excessive use of floor wax and grumbled endlessly that the school's toilet bowls, admittedly antiquated, were rarely cleaned in conformity with acceptable sanitary standards. Small wonder that the soup flew into a rage when a furious Professor Frobisher burst into his office the following morning and, in his hand-wringing, fluttering manner, denounced Stolarski. "You goddamn janitor!" he screamed. "I'll kill the bastard!" "Stolarski?" fumed Schanzenbach. "Not Stolarski again. What's that what's that miserable... What's he done now?" "Done? I'll tell you what he's done. Left the trash barrel in my lab last night, full of crap." "You're not serious." "Serious? It's not the half of it. Messed with the equipment, disconnected wires, reverse switches. God only knows what else he screwed up. My lab's a total chaos." "Stolarski? Unbelievable. You sure it was Stolarski? Who else, besides you, who else has a key to the lab?" "You're not accusing me, are you?" "Not unless you're the one who left that mess in my lab." "Oh, don't be ridiculous, Frobisher. I'll look into this immediately. Give me a full report about damages and whatever else happened in there. By this afternoon, if you can spare the time, that is." His buddies at the dugout had their own version of Nick's behavior. They more or less conceded that he looked totally spooked when he stalked in, that he ignored everyone in the joint, including Doyle, who was bartending, that he downed his beer in one swallow, and that he then, somehow, it sure looked like he what? Yelled a Trib reporter. "He flew." "He what?" "Flew." "Oh, come on, fella, don't make me laugh." "He did, so help me. Ask the other guys." "You guys all nuts?" "You don't believe me? Ask Harry there. On the way out, Nick almost knocked Harry's head off." Shortly after the story broke, a few newspaper reporters and media reps in the area had a field day with the dugout's habitués. Great for Doyle, of course, and it boosted circulation. Letterman and Leno read about it in the papers and made jokes, and even Larry King got interested. Still, who could trust a wild story like this, especially from a bunch of booze hounds? Everybody's account was different, but mostly in the details. Did Nick have one or two beers? Did he chug the stuff or sip it? Stuff like that. They all agreed on the unassailable fact that Nick stood at the bar, drank his beer, sort of twirled his arms for about 4 or 5 seconds until they became a blur, and then he, well, so help me, he flew to the door, ripped it open, almost knocked over Harry Molesky, and he was gone. Oh, sure, the guys were a little bewildered, especially Harry, but everybody in the joint was already more than a little sloshed, so the whole thing was written off as a classic example of, what you guys call that again? Yeah, that one, mass hypnosis, know what I mean? Sort of a hazy alcoholic mirage. I mean, what the hell else could it have been, for Christ's sakes? The story got a few headlines when another witness added one more incident to the evening's bizarre activities. Nick's daughter, Maria Magdalena, only 6 years old, was an adorable but somewhat unreliable witness. Still, the kid was obviously smart as a whip, not likely to fabricate fairy tales, especially not fairy tales as grotesque as this one. Nick's slightly hysterical wife, Marisa, related this to the medium, as Nick had barricaded himself in the bedroom. "You say the little girl screamed?" asked the reporter. "She did. It was her bedtime. She was putting the dolls in order like she always does. She's very neat, you know." "Oh, wonderful. Then what happened?" "She heard a noise, looked out her bedroom window, the one over there. It faces the driveway." "Yeah, and then?" "Well, I was in the living room watching TV. Maria ran in and almost tripped. She was so excited. Her face was scrunched up like she was ready to cry, or maybe having a nightmare. 'What's the matter?' I said. 'It's Daddy, Mama. Daddy just drove up.' 'Well, that's nice. But, Mama, he got out of the car and tripped over the garbage can, and then he... What, darling? What happened? What did he do? Oh, Mama, he flew to the doorstep. Now he's just sitting there. He what? He flew, Mama. He flapped his arms up and down real fast, Mama, just like a hummingbird, and then he flew to the doorstep. So much for the interview, that interview with Marisa Stolarski, how it went and how it ended. The mere memory of the evening broke her composure. She cried and fled into the bedroom, perhaps to be with Nick. Reporters and media guys hung around a while, but they knew when to quit, so they folded notepads, dismantled microphones, stowed cameras, and totally skeptical, rushed off to present this implausible story to incredulous supervisors. As expected, disbelief ran rampant, and the story broke slowly. But this was undoubtedly the beginning of what came to be known as the Stolarski Enigma. So that's the first chapter. So I will then, what follows then, I'm not going to tell you all about what follows then. That's what you're going to learn when you read by the book, of course. What happens after that is the government gets involved. Washington gets involved in the deal. Lots of anxiety, and a reporter named Billy Harris prints the story. He gets access to Nick, and in a rather fun chapter, Nick flies for him, and then the story gets headlined, "He Flew." And that's the headline in the Kankakee Daily Journal. I'll introduce you to one more character named Joey Mooney. And this is to become his agent. Joey Mooney was an agent before he was born. While still in the womb, he retained 10% of his father's and 90% of his mother's time and energy. He entered the world as Giuseppe Monatelli 6 weeks before he was due, already in a hurry. In the day school of his central Los Angeles neighborhood, where sweets were discouraged, he did a brisk business selling baggies of M&Ms to his fellow 5-year-olds, retaining all the red ones for himself, approximately 15% of the total. At LA High and Santa Monica City College, he continued to dispense baggies, although with a different content, retaining 15% of the product in exchange for services rendered. At 21, he changed his name to Joseph Mooney, figuring Monatelli too hard to remember, Giuseppe too difficult to spell, and Joe Mooney to be a perfect compromise, easy to pronounce and delightfully similar to his favorite word, money. For a time, Joey, as everyone called him, worked for a collection agency, followed by a stint in the distribution of audiovisual materials consisting of a selective stock of erotica. At 26, he returned to his roots, selected a niche in the marketplace, borrowed money from Papa Monatelli, and set up the Mooney Talent Agency in 2 rooms on Beverly Boulevard, a block south of La Brea. He specialized in contractual relations with anyone still breathing, whether male, female, or otherwise, with anyone displaying demonstrable talent, however microscopic, and of course with any enterprise willing to pay for his services. Joey worked diligently on behalf of his clients, gained their respect, and more than earned his 15%, enough to hire his first employee, Ashley Avedon, a young woman he met while both toiled in the erotica business. Ashley's main job, aside from the usual telephone answering and coffee-making routine, was to maintain an extensive file, a well-organized morgue, culled from newspapers, magazines, or trade papers, describing anyone with a talent that might require the agency's vigorous representation. When Ashley ran across a little squib in the LA Times about some janitor in Chicago named Nicholas Stolarski, rumored to have flown without using an airplane, actually without using anything at all except his own arms, she dismissed it, as would any sensible person. However, it stuck in her mind and continued to nag at her, so she took it into Joey. Kind of silly, Joey, but gosh, you never know. Joey scanned the article, leaned back in his swivel chair, put his feet on the desk, and allowed this weird information to simmer in his pot of ideas. Ash, he yelled, this piece says something about a newspaper that broke the story. Find out the name of the paper and who wrote it. She called the Times and sweet-talked the fellow in the morgue for a trace, which turned out to be the Kankakee Daily Journal. She Googled that paper and quickly found the article, bylined by a reporter named Billy Harris. The Google linked to a follow-up article about a Pentagon connection. Wow, Joey, look at this, pretty amazing. Joey brooded over the articles for an hour, sent Ashley to the La Brea bakery for a bear claw and a glazed donut, washed them down with black coffee, and decided on a course.